Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. How are you this morning? And it's so good to be joining you here today. My name's Linda. I'm your certified trauma recovery coach. And welcome to the next edition of Complex PTSD TV, where we're going to talk about essentials for working with a therapist or a trauma recovery coach. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know that I'm going to give you some information, and then what you can do is download it from the free Complex PTSD resource library. So it's there for you. I've made a new section in the library. It's just building and building. For infographics, where I'm going to give you the information where you can download the infographic from the free resource library, and then I've got instructions in there for how you can use it and what to do, next steps, etc., so that you can keep moving along in your recovery journey. Okay, now the link for the free resource library will be down below once we've finished, and hook into it, because there's lots of valuable information in there for you to begin taking your recovery journey into the one next step and then the one next step. So this time next year, things have really grown and changed for you. And I know they all work, because not only have I used them myself, I use them with my clients, and I use them to help educate people around the globe. So today, my heart was really, really broken when one of the family members, one of our global family members in our group, made a post about how a therapist had told them basically to get over their complex PTSD by going and screaming and being afraid and bringing fear into their life and facing the fear. And I was just like, oh my goodness, that kind of therapy, one, is so outdated, just for normal therapists, and two, for complex PTSD, that therapy doesn't work. Okay, so it's outdated for normal therapy, because they used to believe things like, if you go and punch a punching bag when you're angry, then that'll help you discharge the anger, but it doesn't. What they found over time in research was that when you're punching that bag repeatedly, it doesn't discharge the anger. Your mind focuses on the anger, and it builds the anger into a bigger anger pile. So if our body and brain's already full of fear, why would I want to go and do something that's going to fill me with fear even more? And then my mind's going to magnify it even more, and then it's just going to bring on even more triggers, etc., etc. So when I read this post, I was just devastated and brokenhearted that this misinformation is still going around, and we need to know that it's misinformation in order that we can know whether therapy and or a trauma coach is going to work for us. Okay, so I came up with a list of essentials that we need when we're working with a therapist or in therapy, or we're working with a trauma coach. We need to know these things. Now, it doesn't mean that we just jump therapists or coaches or anything. It means that we now become empowered to know what we need as people who have complex PTSD, and what we need in recovery, what we need to heal, and what we need to continue to become more well and break free of all the trauma that our brain and our body hold on to. Okay, so the first thing that is really, really important to ask your therapist or coach is, do they know about SMART goals? Now, SMART goals, SMART is an acronym, and it's for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound goals. Now, we need all of those things when we're going to take our one next step. So we need a specific goal. So it's not just a goal of, well, I want to heal, Well, what's my one next thing that's bugging the living daylights out of me that I want to heal? All right, specific, just one thing. Trying to do too many things at once can trigger our whole system, and we don't want to do that. We just want to work on the one next thing. Measurable. So we want to sit down and work out what are the key indicators that this goal is actually working. And it could simply be that I want to get into a routine, and then, it's measurable because I'm able to get into the routine, or it's measured against how am I not able to get into this routine yet. So if it's measurable, then you're going to know what's working and what's not. So you're the expert in your life and you need this. And none of all the self-help work that I give you is invalid. It's because trauma is interpersonal, we need other safe people to work with as well. So we can do a lot at home, but when we work with a therapist or a trauma coach who know what they're doing, then because it's interpersonal, it's a safe relationship, it's an important, integral part of our healing journey. Okay, and the A, achievable. There's no use saying things like, well, I want to go back to work and expecting it to happen overnight. What's my one next step towards going back to work that is achievable for me, all right? And it's going to be different for everybody. This is what therapists, trauma coaches certainly understand, is that the process of recovery for complex PTSD is different for everybody. You can look up SMART goals, Google SMART goals, and it'll give you a list of what you need, okay? And the most important part of it all will be, I know I haven't done the R, but you can look it up, otherwise I'll be here all day, time bound, because we are challenged with time, okay? And that's part of the neurological impact, and we can work with that. Number 2, can they help you with a personalised structure for your day? Now, personalised structure for your day is something that we work on throughout the process. It's not one and done, all right? Because if we think it's just going to be one and done, then we're not allowing for all of the challenges that come up along the way. Okay, you want to know, do your therapists work with a client-centered approach? Now, therapists are coming to understand that we need a client-centered approach because it's different to the old ways of doing therapy. Client-centered means that I know you're the authority in your life, okay? And I know that when I give you information, you get to be able to decide what can work and what can't work. It's very different to old ways of doing therapy, okay? And it allows for a much more personalised approach as well. So you can Google client-centered to see and understand more. Can they assist you with complex PTSD strategies? It's really, really important that they understand that complex PTSD is different to other forms of therapy, all right? You can't go into therapy with a therapist who doesn't understand that you need things that they assume that you already have, all right? That's if they don't understand about trauma. Because we don't have, with developmental trauma, we don't have a lot of what is assumed is the norm in life, all right? So they've got to be able to help you with strategies. Will they share complex PTSD education with you? The more education we have around it, the greater our ability to take charge of what's happening for us internally, and the quicker we can resolve things and keep going forward. Now, it's definitely not an overnight transformation for any of us. And if I'd known how long it would take, these days I think, oh, would I gotten out of bed? Yeah, of course I would. But it's intensive for us because this has been going on for generations, all right? We're the first generation to stand up and start addressing it realistically and effectively, all right? So you want somebody who's going to be able to share education with you in order that you can observe in your day-to-day life where that is implicated in ways that are unique to you. All right. Now we want to ask them questions around the following. All right. So do they understand emotional neglect and emotional abuse and its neurological impact? That's really important, that the neurological impact is understood, because so much of what's happening for us can be driven from the brain. So yes, the body holds on to trauma and we've got to address that too. But when we can trace it back to the actual neurological impacts, it becomes easier to identify what's happening for us internally. And then we go, oh my goodness, that's the brain driving that. Now I can implement different strategies and structures, and I can also work with my thoughts and my emotions around that, because I recognize that it's coming from the unconscious or subconscious, whatever's programmed into me at a young age. And it makes the world of difference, all right? And it cuts down so much time. Like, I spent years before I knew any of this information, highly self-aware of what was happening for me internally and so much more. But it wasn't until I knew what parts the brain was driving that I began to be able to make some really significant healing progress, actually. So do they have an understanding of physical, sexual, mental and spiritual abuse on the body and the brain, and the responses that trauma causes from that? You'll want to know that, because for each of them it's different, and it's really helpful to understand what happens in each area. You're not asking them to have a wealth of knowledge, you're asking them, do they have an understanding? And even with an understanding of these implications, you can make progress, okay? So do you understand attachment theory and how my attachment style impacts my life? Okay, that's really, really important, especially if there's emotional abuse / emotional neglect. They're going to want to be able to work with that so that they can help you identify the areas around fear and love and everything in between, all right? And you want to know, have they studied developmental trauma and the neurological impact, all right? Because if they have, then you're on a good road to know that they at least have wisdom and understanding and learning, education around what can and can't help you according to your attachment style and according to developmental trauma and the impacts on your brain and your body. Okay, I hope that all helps. So remember, go into the free resource library, download the infographic, put it on your phone, and it's stuff that you can ask your therapist. And even if you start at number 1, which is the SMART goals, you can then go, right, I want you to help me start setting SMART goals around my one next step, okay? And that way you're going to build confidence that you can then take charge of the direction of your healing and your recovery as well, okay? Thanks for tuning in this morning. It's great to be with you. And remember to like, subscribe and share, especially in these times when so many people need this information. And remember, above and beyond everything else, you are loved. Bye.